Built in 1930, Madam Queen was the culmination of decades of research and development by Santa Fe Railway Mechanical Engineering Department. Testing in 1931 proved that she was far superior to the 210-230-800 class she was designed to replace. Locomotive 5000 was designed and built for moving fast freights on the Pecos Division, between Belen and Clovis, New Mexico. This section of the Santa Fe had 1.27% grades and winding curves that needed her tremendous power to make sure the freight kept moving. The 5000 class was envisioned from the drawing board to be the most powerful two-cylinder steam locomotives ever built. Eastern investors and the stock exchange called it the Atchison. The new land grant provided 2,931,247 acres to the first railroad company that reached the Colorado border by March 3, 1873. In 1868, the first spade of earth was turned in Topeka by the Kaw River banks. The race was on for the Colorado border. The Santa Fe reached the Colorado border in December 1872, thus securing the land grant. The city of Pueblo became the next target, then on to Trinidad and finally Raton Pass in New Mexico, the gateway to Santa Fe. By 1876, the line to Pueblo was in regular service. Nearly tabletop flat grades from Kansas to Trinidad meant motive power at the time handled the tonnage and traffic headed to the end of the line with ease. By 1878, Both the Denver and Rio Grande and the Santa Fe Railway had lines into Trinidad, Colorado. Both needed the ownership of Raton Pass to expand into New Mexico and ultimately California. Whoever put tracks over the pass first would secure it for their railroad. With luck, Santa Fe was able to get its crews in place on Raton Pass a few hours ahead of the Rio Grande crews. The conflicts between the Rio Grande and the Santa Fe were ultimately settled in court. Santa Fe kept Raton Pass, Rio Grande kept the Royal Gorge, giving that railroad access to Leadville and the silver mines. At first, Santa Fe used a switchback, a zigzag track arrangement, to get trains over the pass. This demanded a 6% grade, which required two 440 locomotives working in unison to move 34 cars over the 2 3/4 mile switchback in a 12-hour shift. This is when and where Santa Fe began its quest for larger motive power. If the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad had won the pass, the entire locomotive development picture on the Santa Fe Railway would have had a totally different outcome, and the 5000 might have never been developed. In 1878, Baldwin Locomotive Works departed from the standard 440 design and constructed a 280 saddle tanker. Numbered 204, it was the largest locomotive built by Baldwin up to that time. Santa Fe named the locomotive Uncle Dick, after Richard's Lacey Uncle Dick Wooten. Santa Fe bought his property and toll road on top of Raton Pass, which helped the railroad acquire the pass rather than the Denver and Rio Grande. The Uncle Dick went into service on the Raton Pass switchback with the following dimensions: 20 by 26 inch cylinders, 42 inch diameter driving wheels, 130 pounds per square inch boiler pressure, 26.4 square feet of firebox grade area, with a tractive effort of 27,400 pounds. The first and third drivers were blind, no flanges on wheels, to allow operation on the 16-degree curves of the Raton switchback. Uncle Dick pulled with power equivalent to two 440 American engines over the pass, at fuel and maintenance cost only slightly higher than a single 440. Aside from the obvious fuel savings, and fewer locomotives to maintain, Uncle Dick could take 46 cars over the pass in 12 hours. September 1879 marked the opening of the 2,000-foot Raton Tunnel, causing the switchback to be abandoned. The tunnel relieved the grade from 6% to 3.5%, which sent Uncle Dick to the shops to be rebuilt into a conventional 280. As a compound locomotive, Uncle Dick provided the first passenger service to Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1880, with a 3-car train called the Deluxe Express, which ran from La Junta, Colorado, to Santa Fe. In December 1881, Uncle Dick tumbled down the mountainside from an undetermined cause, killing the engineer and fireman. Rebuilt with a new cab, smokebox, and some new appliances, the locomotive retained the Uncle Dick name for a time, until its prominence declined, and it became designated simply as engine number 2403. The locomotive finally went to scrap in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in 1921. Uncle Dick's success on Santa Fe's Raton Pass gave the mechanical department a vision of even larger and more efficient locomotives to come. By 1880, Santa Fe was experiencing rapid growth and needed more equipment. The railroad wanted locomotives designed to its specifications, not off-the-shelf power. After all, no one else had to deal with the grades of Raton Pass. The railroad sent a proposal to 3 locomotive builders to construct and deliver 10 280 locomotives for an 1880 fall delivery. Baldwin had the lowest bid, and the two companies signed an agreement on March 13, 1880, for delivery to begin in August. These Baldwins, numbered 130 to 139, came equipped with the following specifications: 20 by 28 inch cylinders, 50 inch drivers, 58 inch diameter boiler, 130 pounds per inch 2 boiler pressure, 27.6 square foot firebox grade area, and a 3,200 gallon water tank. With a tractive effort of 23,600 pounds, This class prepared to do battle with the steep descending grades in the Raton area, equipped with La Chatelier, steam and hot water brakes. This device admitted water into the cylinders, to help cool and lubricate the pistons, and slowed the locomotive as the pistons tried to compress the water in the cylinders. This required an exceedingly delicate touch from the engineer as he adjusted the valve for the device, because too much water in the cylinders would cause severe damage. This successful locomotive design led to an order for 4 more engines of the same design in 1882, numbers 279 to 282. These larger locomotives earned their keep on Raton Pass. Santa Fe Railway was now poised to begin experimenting with 4-cylinder tandem compound locomotives, which were the first direct forebears of locomotive number 5000. Compounding steam, using the steam twice, first in a high-pressure cylinder, then passing it on to a low-pressure cylinder, before finally exhausting into the atmosphere, was first done on ships. Some ocean-going vessels use the steam up to 5 times, but this is not practical on a locomotive due to the complexity of the machinery involved. In general, many consider the year 1900 to be the demarcation line between old-time and modern steam locomotives. This is because, before 1900, narrow fireboxes fit between the drivers. In 1900, typical power for passenger service was the 460, while freight service relied on 280s and the smaller drivers of the 460s. Both types of engines suffered from the same mechanical restrictions, that is, the cylinders could not be made any larger, or they would overtax their boilers. More steam could not be generated because of the firebox's small capacity. The last pair of driving wheels limited the firebox length and width according to what they could support. The balance of power between boiler output, firebox capacity, and number of driving wheels had been reached. Piston valves were a vast improvement over sliding valves. The most popular valve gear at the time was the Stephenson type, which used sliding valves. Mechanics found working on the Stephenson valve gear difficult owing to its inside frame mounting. Stephenson valve gear also required large driving eccentrics on the axles, and this often caused overheating problems. The 10-wheeler and the consolidation used steam inefficiently. Maintaining a hot firebox required a very strong draft, with this draft induced by the force of exhausting steam out of the stack. The exhausting steam went out of the cylinders and into the smoke box, where it had to pass through the exhaust nozzle. A smaller nozzle caused the exhaust steam speed to increase and created better draft in the firebox. However, the smaller exhaust nozzle caused more back pressure in the cylinders. Consequently, all these factors began to work against each other, one defeating the advantage of the other, as the locomotive speed increased. Firebox space limitations seem to be the root of most of these problems. If the firebox could be made larger, steam and drafting capacity could be increased. Then, larger cylinders and drivers could be applied, making a larger and heavier locomotive with a substantial increase in power. The only solution to limited firebox space was a trailing truck, which would allow the firebox to not only extend in length, but also extend outside the bounds of the drivers. The boiler could be mounted much lower on the engine, lowering the overall center of gravity. At first, trailing trucks were an inside-bearing type. Santa Fe developed the outside-bearing truck, and then the first successful four-wheel trailing truck in 1919, which was installed on number 3829 during construction. An improved four-wheel trailing truck became standard on Santa Fe motive power in later years. Santa Fe's engineering department did considerable testing of different valve motions. Santa Fe began favoring Walschaerts valve motion over Stephenson, Young, Baker, and Southern. Walschaerts gear is outside the locomotive's frame, making it easy to service and repair. It also transmits the piston's force in a straight line, with less indirect motion than other types. The Madam Queen's lineage starts with the two Tenno decapods, numbers 988 and 989. These two locomotives were built in 1901 by the American Locomotive Company of Schenectady, New York, as four-cylinder tandem compounds. Tandem compound locomotives had an extra cylinder on each side, placed one in front of the other. The smaller cylinder in the front was the high-pressure cylinder. Exhaust from the front or high-pressure cylinder was exhausted into the rear or low-pressure cylinder, where the steam was used again, before being released to the atmosphere. These locomotives were the largest in the world when built, and had the following specifications: 17.5-inch and 30-inch cylinders, 34-inch stroke, 57-inch drivers, 180 pounds per square inch boiler pressure, and 52,000 pound tractive effort. Baldwin's slightly larger answer to Alco's two decapods came in 1902. Its 210, number 940, was soon renumbered to 987. Baldwin equipped this locomotive with Samuel Vauclain's version of tandem compounding. Santa Fe used in the 5000, including steel castings, wide fireboxes, and oil-burning locomotives. Built by Baldwin between 1905 and 1907, the 1600 class locomotives were nearly identical to the 900 class, with one significant exception: they burned oil. '74 class locomotives were conservative designs indeed. With only 170-pound boilers and 57-inch drivers initially, this class was built with simple 28 by 32-inch cylinders, and equipped with Schmidt superheaters, and 200 pounds per square inch, producing 74,800 pounds of tractive effort. During Santa Fe's long investigation into achieving greater efficiencies with firebox boiler combinations, the railroad looked at all options. After many years of experience with the Fox and the Jacob Schubert fireboxes, Santa Fe found that the best firebox overall was the radial stayed type. This was because the Fox had two cylindrical compartments that made it very wide. The extreme width of the Fox firebox caused the cab and all the controls of the locomotive to be moved forward from its normal position. This put the engineer and fireman in a very narrow space next to the boiler. The Jacob Schubert firebox was very strong and highly resistant to boiler explosions, but did not produce good heating qualities. In 1918, Santa Fe needed a larger, modern heavy freight locomotive, and thus developed the 3800 class. Inspired by John Purcell design improvements, Santa Fe purchased 140 simple, and by far the most powerful, 3800 class 210-2s. John Purcell hired twos, 355 total, clearly shows what a difference a two-wheel trailing truck made. The first 50 of the 3800 class came with 195 pound per square inch boilers, others were equipped with 210 pound per square inch boilers. All 3800 class locomotives after the 3891 had 220 pound per square inch. Was in constant need of more powerful and faster locomotives. Attaining increased pulling force and speed required an even larger firebox than the 3800s. Physics dictated a firebox and boiler size larger than a two-wheel trailing truck could support. While the 3800 class engines were being built, Santa Fe's mechanical engineering department sent a new supplemental order to Baldwin Locomotive Works on May 29, 1919. The supplement stated, four-wheel back engine truck, to be applied to number 3829. The railroad sent Baldwin a Santa Fe designed, Commonwealth four-wheel truck, with 36-inch diameter wheels. Baldwin installed the truck on the 3829, as instructed on July 7, 1919, thus creating the world's first 210-4. Although the 3829's firebox and boiler were the same as the other 3800 class 210-2s, Santa Fe was only concerned about testing the four-wheel trailing truck's performance, without having to design an entirely new locomotive. Despite number 3829's success, no other 3800 class engines would be built with the four-wheel trailing truck. However, those early experiments influenced Santa Fe's own development of 464s, 284s, 484s, and 210-4s. As Santa Fe continued to order the 3800 class, later locomotives received modern appliances such as cast steel frames, delta trailing trucks and feedwater heaters. The 3800s provided Santa Fe with a strong stable of heavy freight power that remained the railroad's premier power from 1919 until the end of Santa Fe's steam era. However, this class had its limitations, and Santa Fe forged ahead with its steam locomotive development.